we've been a little busy. So as the Joe Biden turns, I mean, honestly, the more I watch Joe Biden, and I try not to as much as I can, the more I watch Joe Biden, the more I feel like I'm watching Hillary Clinton with a penis. Some of you might not like me saying that. I'm sorry to be crude, but I feel like I'm watching Hillary Clinton in 2016 from a man with a penis. And what unsettles me about that is if we're basically watching Hillary Clinton campaigning, only a man with a penis as her, why would we think that's going to take out Donald Trump in the general election? I mean, I watched Joe Biden's campaign, and I'm going to go through every example. And he's running the same exact campaign as the most unpopular Democratic nominee in American history. He's running the same exact political campaign for president as somebody who lost to a reality television doofus. Literally, it's the same exact campaign, which begs the question: is Joe Biden running to win the presidency, or is he running to make sure Bernie Sanders cannot win the presidency? First of all, definitely watch the video Jen did this morning, where Joe Biden at a campaign event is literally, after 4 women already came out, basically pointing out that he's a creep and that he smells little children's hair, that he touches women in personal space they don't want to touch and don't want to be touched in. Joe Biden at a campaign event pulls a little child who looks like, "Get me out of here, Mom," pulls a little child and then puts his hands on her shoulder and basically puts his head right next to her hair. The same exact thing that he went on The View and he said nationally that he was going to stop doing, and it's his responsibility to know people's personal space. He just did last night. Jen did a great video on it, so you can watch that video after I'm live. So, Joe Biden, and this is from Politico, who also just did a story calling Bernie Sanders a cheap Jew. This, again, Politico literally did a story that Bernie Sanders is a cheap Jew that I'm saving for Sunday. I'm going to talk about that on Sunday. So, Joe Biden is the front runner by every measure except big crowds. So before I read this story to you, do you remember a candidate in a not so distant election who was inevitable? Do you remember a candidate in a not so distant election who was front runner, clear the field, she's going to be the nominee? Do you remember a candidate who was leading in the polls big time, was, basically the corporate media painted them as inevitable, and they basically could barely sell out a bingo hall for a rally? Do you remember a candidate like that? So basically, Hillary Clinton could not sell out a bingo hall in 2016. You want to know how I know? Because I was out there covering the election. I remember being at her campaign rally in Iowa, a local Iowa college. She could barely fill out a local college gym, the front runner. And now you have Joe Biden, the same exact thing. Joe Biden is the front runner, just like Hillary Clinton was. However, he can barely get enough people to fill a bingo hall. He's dominating in the polls. His fundraising is going gangbusters, and he's showing broad support from key political players in the early presidential states. So where are the big, energetic crowds, the lines around the block to get into Joe Biden's events? The question is no small matter in a party still recovering from a bitter 2016 defeat, a loss marked by a lack of enthusiasm for an establishment nominee in several critical states. Attendance at the former vice president's launch rally paled next to some of his rivals. In his first Iowa visit, he didn't match the crowds that greeted Elizabeth Warren or even the less well-known Pete Buttigieg in their initial visits. So far, he's kept his events to smaller venues where there's little danger of empty seats. Oh my God. Oh my God. The former vice president of the United States is getting less people to come see him in Iowa than a local mayor from South Bend, Indiana, America's mayor, Pete Buttigieg, the new sex symbol of America, who, by the way, is a complete fraud. Go watch my interview with South Bend's mayoral candidate. Forgot her name. Great progressive African-American woman. He's a fraud. So Joe Biden is getting less people to his Iowa events than Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, and definitely Bernie Sanders. And this is who you want to take on Donald Trump? Tell me in the super chat. Am I missing something, or is this suicidal? Because they tell me, I'm told by the corporate media, crowd sizes don't matter. Crowd sizes don't matter. It's how many people come out to the polls. Well, you know what does matter? Energy, inspiration, buzz. And the thing that was constant when I covered the 2016 campaign, I would cover Hillary Clinton's campaign, and there would be barely anyone at the rallies. There would be barely, you could barely see Hillary Clinton lawn signs in Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin. But we were told by the corporate media, don't worry about the rally sizes. The people that, older people don't necessarily go to rallies. Older people are the most reliable voters, and they don't necessarily need to be inspired. Don't worry about it. Well, we're being told the same exact thing right now about middle-class Joe, union man Joe. Joe Biden, he can't get crowds in Iowa. In the eyes of Biden's progressive critics, as well as President Donald Trump, who publicly mocked him for it, the seeming lack of excitement or teeming masses at his events is a leading indicator of a lack of passion for his candidacy. Quote, I started to think the polls were wrong about Biden because it's not what we're seeing on the ground, said Amy Allison, founder and president of She the People, a national network devoted to promoting women of color. Quote, inspiration is the X factor, and we're waiting for the inspiration from Biden, she said. When the inspiration isn't there, the turnout from the core of the Democratic base, women of color, isn't there, and then we lose. To Biden's campaign, attendance figures are meaningless metric. Sounds a lot like somebody I knew in 2016, Hillary Clinton. Focusing on crowd size is Trump's game. It says an emphasis on style over substance that attempts to turn audience engagement into an argument about the 76-year-old Biden's energy level. Crowd size, after all, is an imperfect metric to measure a campaign's vitality. While it could be a revealing indicator, it still lacks the scientific underpinning of polling or the fixed dollar figures associated with fundraising. Nor does it account for the judgment of elected and influential Democrats across the country. Just as critics doubted Biden's popularity before he got in the race, his campaign is confident he'll have the crowds when he needs them. Quote, we're seeing enormous enthusiasm for Joe Biden's candidacy across the country. Beginning the very first day of the campaign, when he got over 100,000 contributions, 65,000 of them were brand new to our list from all 50 states. Even so, since announcing his candidacy more than a month ago, Biden has yet to draw anything near the 20,000 people who showed in Oakland to cheer on Kamala Harris when she announced, or the 13,000 who turned out in Brooklyn for Bernie Sanders' launch. Last Saturday, when Biden held a rally for his headquarters openings in Philadelphia, his campaign estimated the crowd size was 6,000, a count that some local observers thought might be generous. One local elected Democrat who supports Biden privately told Politico the rally was smaller and less energetic than expected. And I'll give you a little behind the scenes. Jen wouldn't let me do it. But I said, is it okay if I tweet out that day? Somebody had tweeted out the attendance at his rally for his kickoff rally in Philadelphia. And it looked like an empty bingo hall. So I said to Jen, is it offensive if I tweet out Joe, next time, make sure you don't do a rally at peak bingo time. You'll get a lot more of the seniors over if you're not doing it during bingo time. And I'm not an ageist. I'm not trying to insult the seniors. I love the seniors. I love bingo. But it's true. So there's two things here, right? Trump had pretty big rallies. Bernie's rallies were bigger. Trump kept putting out there, oh, I got the biggest crowd sizes. No, you didn't. I was at both of your rallies. I was at Bernie's rallies. I was at Trump's rallies. Bernie had bigger audiences than Trump. Trump still did have pretty big audience. So Hillary Clinton always had smaller rallies. But it's not just about attendance at a rally. It's about what you see at rallies. Because part of a campaign and part of getting people that aren't political diehards interested in voting for you is when they could feel an energy around, when they could feel buzz around candidates, when they see that, oh my God, there's all this energy and there's all these people going downtown for a rally for Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump or whatever, they start thinking to themselves, these are people that aren't diehard into politics like us. Oh, maybe I need to look into this candidate, or maybe I need to go to one of this candidate's rallies. So it's not just about the actual crowd size. It's about if you have energy. Because to win a campaign against a quasi-fascist, you need a populist, an exciting movement type of energy to defeat that. Obviously, you did not get that from Hillary Clinton. And you're not going to get that from Joe Biden because young people don't want Joe Biden. Older progressives don't want Joe Biden. Even middle class, 40 to 55, they're not like, feeling something in their chest or down their legs when Joe Biden speaks. Joe Biden, basically, which I'm going to get to, his campaign slogan seems to be like, make America normal again. Yeah, that's going to bring out the young people. That's going to bring out the minorities. That's going to bring out, possible Trump voters to consider the Democrat. Just make America normal again. You're telling me that the former vice president of the United States can't get, if you want to be generous, more than 6,000 people, it was probably closer to 5,000 people, out on a Saturday for his campaign kickoff rally? You want to tell me, but if you add the lack of excitement out there for Joe Biden, visibly, the lack of excitement, when you add the fact that Politico Story says they're purposely choosing smaller venues for his rallies to avoid the embarrassment of empty seats. What scares me the most is, that feeling when you see like a train that is about to crash, just like gliding along and it's about to crash, and you see the people like hanging out the windows, drinking champagne, and they're all excited. This is a slow-moving train crash, Joe Biden's campaign. Because you have reports from, I don't like Politico, but they're reporting what they see on the ground. We've seen on Twitter at Joe Biden events, small attendance and small rallies. So you could see a visible lack of excitement for the former vice president of the United States, who, by the way, when he speaks, nothing really substantial comes out. He doesn't have any policy proposals. The only policy that he has put out, as David Sirota, Bernie Sanders' speechwriter, pointed out on Twitter today, he's basically plagiarizing what Bernie Sanders has already put out. Wow. Sounds like Hillary Clinton when she started adopting things Bernie was putting out. But who was going to believe Hillary Clinton would actually follow through on any of those progressive promises? And nobody believes Joe Biden would do so. So what's scary about this is you have a lack of excitement on the ground, but you also have polls that are, as we've reported at Status Quo and others are starting to talk about, that are skewed significantly towards older people. So you have a lack of excitement on the ground, and you also have a basically inflated or exaggerated lead for Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders. Because if the majority of the polls are sampling way more people over the age of 50. And again, I always put this as a disclaimer. We're not insulting our viewers that are over 50 because there's a lot of progressives that are over 50. But by the data, by the trends, older people tend to be more establishment, to vote for the Bidens of the world, the Clintons of the world, the Obamas of the world. You get my point. Bernie's advantage is in under 40, even though he does have a lot of older progressive support. But if you have this lack of excitement and lack of energy, that they're purposely choosing smaller venues out there to basically make sure there's not an embarrassment of empty seats. If his campaign is deliberately choosing to keep him off the campaign trail, which is a whole nother story, he was off the campaign trail, I think, for 9 or 10 days. That's a lifetime in campaigning. So you don't want to pick big venues because you know nobody's going to show up to fill them. You're keeping him home in Delaware because you know that he's a terrible candidate. It sounds a lot like Hillary Rodham, warmonger Clinton's 2016 campaign. Jen, could you let me know in the super chat? Am I wrong here? Am I wrong? Does this sound like Hillary? I guess it's Hillary 3.0 because she ran in 2008 and 2016. I see a slow-moving train wreck. What is different about Joe Biden than Hillary Clinton's campaign? Nothing. And the scary thing is, again, if the corporate media is making this myth and they're pushing these polls, that some of these polls, they're polling 900 people and they poll less than 125. Of those 900, less than 125 are under the age of 50. So you have the majority of the poll, the overwhelming majority of the poll, I'm talking about CNN's poll in this case, that is over the age of 50. So you're giving this false, exaggerated impression, this pixie dust that Joe Biden is beating. He's so far out in the lead. He's beating Bernie by 20 points. But meanwhile, on the ground, nobody's going to his rallies. Even older people. Older people are generally the ones going to his rallies, but, you could say, well, Jordan, the rallies don't matter because older people will come out on election day. You need more than older people to beat Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton's problem against Donald Trump was not older voters. They did come out for her. You know what Hillary Clinton's problem was? She had 5% less African Americans that came out for her as compared to Barack Obama in 2012. She had 5% less age 18 to 29 that came out for her as compared to Obama in 2012. Remarkably, in the face of a president that talked about Mexicans being rapists and drug lords and criminals, she had 6% less Latinos and Latinas come out for her compared to Obama in 2012. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statusquo.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statusquo.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.